Well, good morning. It would be a Monday morning. It's a rainy, kind of a gloomy day out there. And I wanted to put together a bit of a video because um, I could potentially today discover the identification of my birth mother. Um, I'm adopted. I've known that since my earliest recollection. My adoptive parents were awesome, awesome parents. I couldn't have asked for a better life. I have absolutely no regrets in that respect whatsoever. In fact, I feel honored to have been selected. So, anyways, just so you know that I don't have any problem with having been adopted. I think it's pretty awesome. But it's been a bit of a battle, and I live in the Toronto area, but I was born in Montreal, Quebec, which it's part of the same country, but you'd think that would make things easy, but it doesn't. It's a bit of a border, considering the language and laws, provincial laws. So in recent years, the laws have changed, and to break down a very long story to make it short, um, the most recent laws allow for an individual who um, his birth parents had not sought out any sort of relationship to meet. If they pass away, um, after 1 year, you're entitled to learn their name. And unfortunately, while I was having a search done, about a year ago, I actually got a phone call from a representative at the adoption agency, and she informed me that my birth mother had been found, but unfortunately, within the last year, had passed away. I don't know how, I don't know the circumstances. I do know she would have been in her very early 70s based on what I know about the non disclosure information that I'd received already. So that was disappointing to find out that your birth mother had passed away and you never had a chance to meet her. I mean, that goes beyond disappointing. Although I'm super removed from that situation as a child parent relationship. I've never met her. I don't even know who she is. I don't know what she looks like. So, as sad and as disappointing as that was, it's not even close to what would happen to somebody you have a relationship with here in the present day, your real circle of influence life. But in recent times, and this is going to get long winded, so I apologize, but in recent times, I was told at that moment that when I discovered that she had passed away, that you will be able to apply for her name because it's been a year. I did that, and that was like 6 months ago. And since then, I've just ran into a whole bunch of bureaucracy and red tape, and they're just way understaffed and underfunded. And so, my last phone call to, which was actually the wrong place, but the woman was sympathetic, and she said, "Well, you need to fill out the application again." And I was like, "Oh man, I got to fill this out again." I did. I filled it out last Monday. I sent it in last Monday. It arrived on her desk because I phoned her on Friday and I said, "Have you received it?" She says, "I have, but I haven't had a chance to open it yet. I will contact you next week." It's next week. It's Monday. So I don't know what next week means. Normally, I would have my phone shut off when I make a video. It makes perfect sense. I don't want to get interrupted. In this instance, I have it on because how cool would that be when I do this video if the phone were to ring right now and I could capture the moment where I actually learn my mother's name. My hope is, the world has become a much smaller place. My hope is with Google and the internet and with Facebook and all these social media platforms that there was some presence by her. And hopefully through a memorial check on Google or something with her name, I'm hoping to be able to track her down. And, I guess the fact that she never wanted a reunion, again, I don't hold any disregard. She has her reasons. I know that. But, I've lost both my adoptive parents now. I lost my dad a little more than 20 years ago to a massive heart attack. Um, I lost my mother, going on 7 years now, to cancer. And the only thing I didn't want to share in common with those two individuals was their genetics because they left way too early. So I'm grateful that I seem to come from a strong gene pool. The little bit of information I know about the adoptive process when I was born was my mother went back and forth a number of times. There was notes about that. She didn't want to give me up, but in the end decided it was the best thing for whatever reason, which I totally respect. And so here we are. I don't want to disrupt her memory, her life, but I could have siblings. I could have full siblings, half siblings, uncles, aunts. And just as a little weird story to this, I grew up, I was a young man in Toronto. I was on the subway one day. I think I was about 18 years old. And this guy sitting adjacent to me, but across the aisle, was staring at me. And I mean, hey, it's a big city and there's weirdos all over the place. And I distinctly remember thinking, this guy's kind of creeping me out. So I got off the subway at my stop, and he got off too. And I don't think it was his stop. But he got off and he said, hey, I'm very, very sorry to bother you, but by any chance were you adopted? This is a random stranger on the subway in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And again, I'm already pretty precautious. I'm already feeling this guy's strange. He took me off guard, and I said, well, yeah. And he said, by any chance, was it in Quebec? And I said, yeah. He says, you look exactly like my nephew. He handed me his business card, and he says, if you ever want to talk about this and talk further about this, please call me. Now again, being naive, being young, being in the midst of a big city full of all kinds of people, I took his card as soon as he left and I threw it in the garbage. That was well over 30 years ago now, and I regret that. That's just way too random, but way too specific to have not meant something. Anyways, having lost both my parents and having a son of my own who is a full-grown man now on his way to a PhD, it's become very important to me to start to understand genetics, my family, I guess sort of the path that my heritage took to get to this moment. I would like to know, of course, about any specific health issues that I should be aware of, that I should make others aware of. But maybe the most important thing to me is when you grew up being adopted, as wonderful as that experience was for me, you don't have a genetic mirror to stare into. You have your parents, you have that whole family circle of influence around you. So you have influences, whether somebody loves to read books, whether somebody is a great storyteller, whether somebody's a great business person, whatever it might be. But from an early age, I loved music. I just adore music. It's everything to me. And the thing is, I didn't have anybody in my family that was musical. So I would love to find out if my love of music is just sort of a random thing, or whether, Uncle Jim and Aunt Sally were part of the Mamas and the Papas. I'm a drummer. I started way late. I started when I was 29 years old. I went out, bought a set of drums at 29 years of age, with nobody in my everyday life being a musician or being musical. I just felt I had to do that. And I've been playing a lot of drums ever since in many bands, and I love it. I was playing drums this morning. The social aspect of things, in life has to affect how you turn out. And it would be an interesting case study to find out who some of my relatives are, what their interests are, what career paths they've taken, and see if any of that relates to me. You hear about twins being separated at birth and then they find each other 30 years later, and I mean, they love the same toothpaste, they drive the same car, they marry the same sort of woman. Pretty amazing stories. And I couldn't be more curious to find out how I became who I am. And based on what we've talked about as far as not having that genetic mirror to look into, I feel like I was a super late bloomer. I don't feel like it. I was definitely a late bloomer. I've been chasing, man, I've been hands-on. I've worked out in the oil sands and worked on oil rigs. I've dug ditches, literally backhoeing, and I've also owned several businesses. So I've been a businessman. I was a real estate agent for 5 or 6 years. I've really been after something, but never really been guided in any particular direction. In the last 2.5 years, I've discovered acting. So when I turned 50 years of age, I decided to try being an actor. And I have to tell you, there's no doubt in my mind now that is what I was meant to do. I'm a very right-brained guy, and this just answers everything I'm searching for. I just love it, and I'm so excited about the future and my career and the support of my family and friends and my wife, and it's been a blessing to find this. But it took me a long time. And you have to wonder if you were looking into that mirror and again somebody in your family was an actor, how much sooner would I have got there? And then on the other hand, as somebody who looks at it from a third party point of view, I'm not sure I could have handled it at 30. I don't think I had a thick enough skin. The whole industry is about being rejected over and over and over again. Hey man, at 50, I've been through so much now, like it takes a lot to rattle me. And I just feel ready now. So without getting into all of the questions I have about being an adopted individual, those are just a few things. And I guess I wanted to share a video acknowledging that I am adopted. I know there's a lot of people out there I have a lot of friends that are adopted as well. They all have stories about meeting their biological parents or being disallowed to do so. There's been happy endings, not so happy endings. I don't know where this one's going to wind up. I'm so excited though. I can't tell you. And then a little weird piece of it is when you finally find out, after all these years of your imagination running wild with who you are. At one time I thought, hey, maybe I'm like Mick Jagger and Margaret Trudeau's love child. Maybe mom lived in behind a dumpster. Like, I don't know. I don't suspect the latter, but who knows? So when you finally have the answers, will that be satisfying or disappointing? I don't know. Only time will tell. Now, my phone didn't ring while we made this video, but I think I'm going to keep this video open. And I'm going to document how this all goes down. I will share the outcome. And I don't know, it might help me, it might be cathartic for me, and that's the end of it. It might help other people who are either experiencing the same thing or who are just adopted, who are wondering about adopting a child. I don't know, but I think it's important to share this information. And I will keep you posted. Thank you very much for listening. We will talk soon.